Nia Life, Part 2. Nia, formerly known as Kessie, came out of the Tazara workshop as a brand new engine. Not just in appearance, but also in function. During the transformation, the crew must have noticed some rusted bolts and uneasy parts. Scratches were buffed and dents were mended. Even the infamous bump on her tank from the drunk driver was healed. Every scar and every wound that Nia had ever held before was all gone. Quaker was right. These shops really do work wonders.
Well, what are you going to do now, Nia?
Quaker has really grown to use that name.
Got any other goods trains I can pull?
Ooh, taking the big route, I see. You really are 18.
Oh, please.
You know, I am taking a long goods train to Dakar.
Dakar? Like Dakar, Senegal?
Is there any other?
That's like on the other side of the continent.
Nearly 5,000 miles.
5,000 miles? How long does that even take?
Well, for an engine like me, it usually takes about 2 days without stopping.
Nia thought hard about this. This is more than just going to another country. She'll be traveling across all of Africa. Across many, many other countries. Even Yvonne was slightly hesitant on the idea. But then she remembered what she said before. Her promise to Nia. Her promise of letting her free. I do remember a little tank engine telling me she wanted to see the world. Nia's face lit up hopefully.
Evie, are you saying?
Senegal, here we come! The engines whooped for joy as they blew their whistles and hurrah! Nia was more psyched than ever for her big African adventure. She rushed to the first cavalcade of trucks and buffered up immediately.
Keep up, Kweku. We have a long way to go.
It seems as if I'm running out of breath catching up to you now. When you went to work, did you happen to take some of our youth?
Perhaps.
Ah, that explains everything now.
Maybe I even have enough to go to Dakar docks myself.
Ha! As if you know the motto.
Yeah. 2 engines are much better than 1.
And that's a fact.
Kweku was going to buffer up at the front until he realized.
You should lead the train.
Nia was puzzled.
You want me in front?
You get to see the world better that way. Also, so that it's easier for me to handle the train if we need to stop.
Nia's face went all red.
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense.
Buffer to buffer, Nia and Kweku, the 2 friends, led themselves to the miraculous world of Africa. The journey to Dakar docks was, as expected, a prolonged travel, but both engines were already aware of that. The views of the magnificent landscapes, however, made up for that. They passed by so many countries, it was hard to sum it up in just one word. But if they could, that word would be escapism. By the looks of it, you think the engines are pulling a train the length of Africa itself. But Nia is clever, and Kweku is powerful. The little personification of brains and brawn. Somehow, these 2 locomotives were able to pull this massive school of trucks along the line. Of course, not all travels go by perfectly. At least, not with the casual elephant blocking the line.
She doesn't look like she's going to move anytime soon, quivered Kweku.
For a big engine, he felt intimidated to the animal. Nia felt sympathetic.
She's not gonna hurt you, Kweku. Not unless you scare her.
Yup, totally. Lucky she can't see me.
And he referenced Nia being in front, unwillingly being a shield. The beast glared at the orange engine, attempting to wear her down. Maybe, just maybe, the machine would run and hide. Her family would be safe, and so her babies and grandbabies. But the machine didn't move. She stood her ground against the giant elephant. The beast trumpeted in pride and was beginning to charge.
Kwaku wailed in terror. Nia! I think she wants us to go!
Shh. Don't be scared. It's okay. It's okay. No one is in danger. Let's take a deep breath. In and out. One more time. In and out. Shh. We won't hurt you.
Remarkably, the elephant was calm. She relaxed to the sound of Nia's sweet, soothing voice. It was so therapeutic, even Kwaku was relaxed. The elephant gave a small "thanks for not attacking me" pat on Nia's head, and slowly walked back to her family, back to safety. Kwaku was impressed. He'd never seen anything like it before. It's as if Nia was some animal whisperer, and in this case she was. Even today, Nia is able to get a lonely cow back to her field just by her presence alone.
You truly have a gift, Nia. I don't think you understand just how special you are.
Oh, it's nothing really. Anyone can talk to animals. You just got to have the right tone.
Yeah, you definitely got that.
The elephant didn't really mean any harm to us. She just wanted to protect her family, as any mother would.
Nia wouldn't notice, but Yvonne gave herself a sulphur and smiled after hearing that. Dakar, Senegal, only feet away from the grand view of the harbor. It wasn't as big as the one in Dar es Salaam, but it was definitely as busy. In complete satisfaction, Nia blew her whistle long and loud enough for the whole country to hear. Kwaku chuckled quietly.
Oh, Nia, I see you have plenty of energy. But, let's keep it down just a bit. Some people are still sleeping, you know.
Indeed, a couple of lights were turned on after the racket, and some people were shouting French at each other in concern. Nia blushed.
Whoops, my bad.
Yvonne simply tissed as she controlled her engine to the nearest water tower, where Nia had a long, long drink. Meanwhile, on the other side of the continent, a certain tattoo controller was beginning to lose his patience. Turns out traveling all of Africa can be a very tiring job, which could explain why Nia was nearly half asleep during the journey home. Kwaku didn't mind, however. To him, Nia was just like another section of the train, albeit in front. Undoubtedly, it was hard to navigate having a giant orange bunker in front of your face, but Kwaku was able to see just enough of Nia's cab. The train made its way to Kenya at last, where Nia had just enough energy to get a glimpse of where they are.
Are we back already?
Kwaku stopped at a siding and uncoupled Nia from there.
I think it's best you try to get back to your shed. I could take the train back home from here.
No, I could still make it. 2 engines, remember?
Oh, really? Did one of those engines happen to be called Sleeping Beauty? Because she was a great help.
Nia sighed, but that sigh then formed into a long, stretchy yawn, only proving Kwaku's point.
Okay, I'll go home. You go take care of yourself, Kwaku. And thank you. I don't know if I would have ever opened up to myself without you.
That classic Kwaku grin appeared on his face again. It still manages to melt any heart away.
I'm glad you got to be yourself at last, and that you found your purpose.
He winks. The whistle blew once again, and with that, the large Garrett engine left the station. Nia quickly followed him behind, tooting goodbye until there was nothing to say goodbye to. Nia has gained a new appreciation for Kwaku, In fact, she got a new appreciation for pretty much everything. She saw not just her own country, but every other country. She earned a new confidence to which she learned to use more often. She learned things about herself she never knew existed. Everything had a new purpose in her life. Nia made her way through the night. She loved the way the moonlight sparkled on the silver rails. It seemed like things were finally looking up for the engine. For now. Down the hill and round the tight bend, Nia passed the station with a furious controller standing on his platform. He was pissed. Like, way more pissed than you expect him to be. The moon glowed directly where he was standing, almost as if it was giving him a spotlight. His veins were popping out of his head like speed bumps on a road, and his face, let's just say Mrs. Elephant from a while ago would have thought twice the second she came face to face with that stare. As Nia puffed away in the distance, the tall controller stormed in his office. "I knew she was trouble," he boomed. "But I never knew she stooped this low." He slammed the office door and violently swept papers and notes off his desk. The controller then came face to face with his telephone. Then he had an idea. An awful idea. The tall controller had a wonderful, awful idea. He grabbed the phone book from a nearby shelf and started flipping for a number. The anger on his face transformed into a nasty grin. "I locked you in that shape to teach you a lesson," he murmured. "I gave you a second chance to that, woman. Now here she thinks she could just leave whenever and swap colors? No wonder her driver quit. I'm done playing nice." The phone began to ring. The 4 rings, someone finally picked up.
Thank you for calling the Demolition Mills. How may we help you today?
I need to rent one of your machines for a bit.
It was quiet when the girls traveled back home. As exciting as their adventure was, both of them were tired. But something would break that silence. Something dreadful. As Nia approached her shed, bright lights blared from the void of darkness. An exhaust pipe roared gray smoke from its chimney. There, just by the side of the wooden building, was a large red bulldozer, with a not-so-happy controller riding in its seat. Little orange engine stood pale to the side of the massive vehicle. Her lips quivered and her wheels shook. The controller gave a devilish grin. And with a mighty growl, the machine rammed against the old shed. Planks of wood bend and creak. Some pieces caved inside, while others were just barely holding on. "No!" But Nia's yelp for help was muffled by the rumbling of the bulldozer. "Please, I beg of you, don't do this!" The controller gave no response, except for the massive grunt after bashing the shed for the second time. Yvonne rushed out of Nia's cab, nearly tripping during the process. "Sir, what are you doing? Be reasonable about this. Is this really necessary?" But there was no getting through to him. "I warned you, didn't I?" He backed the machine one last time and gave a deadly shot to the engine's eyes. Nia's dark chocolate eyes shrunk to the size of a pulp, quivering from left to right. The poor thing could only watch helplessly as the dozer let out an echoing toot. "You're dead to me." Without a second glance, the tall controller charged through both sides of the shed. The wooden walls obliterated into a million pieces as the roof caved to the bottom. With an intensely large smash, the little wooden shed, once proclaimed as Nia's home, was gone. The only thing left standing was the frame of the doorway, just barely standing on its 2 legs. And just like that, the frame fell on its own, inches in front of the devastated little engine. The engine and her driver stood flabbergasted to the wreckage. Nia had no words for what just happened. Her mouth was open, but her voice was mute. And so she cried. She cried for hours and hours, and when there were no more tears left, she still cried. Cry for help. She cried for someone to erase this horror. She cried for someone to go back in time and turn it back to the way it was. She cried for something, anything at all for this crying to stop. And so she prayed. She prayed for a miracle to fix what has been undone. She prayed for someone to shield her away from this awful sin. She prayed for someone to wipe her woes away. She prayed just to be really useful again. She'd pray just for someone to care again. And so she cried. What the hell is wrong with you? Yvonne charged into the tall controller's office. You have crossed a mighty line! The controller lounged in his chair, as if the events of yesterday hadn't happened. He took a sip of his tea and sat upright. Do you understand what I have to do to run a railway, hun? Yvonne stepped back in disgust. In no way does our relationship warrant you calling me hun. You are my employer. Yeah. See, when I expect to run a business, I expect it to be done right, with all my engines working. And I can't have that if one of my engines is dilly-dallying in some other country. You say that as if you care. The talk controller scoffed. If you think you're gonna walk out of here without any consequences, you've got another thing coming. Hey, I'm the driver here. You do not touch my engine. You better watch your tone with me, hun. Yvonne had lost her patience. She finally snapped at the talk controller. These engines are way more than just money. They have feelings too. But you don't care about that, do you? It's always do this and do that, but you never check on them to see if they need care. If you don't know how to show empathy, what makes you qualified to lead? The talk controller eyed down the engine driver. His brows brushed up as he smacked his lips and mumbled, Women. He was gifted a sharp smack across the face. He stood shocked for a few seconds. Then his face contorted with rage as he lunged at her, trying to reach his rough hands around her neck. Though he was skinny, he was very strong. Yvonne vigorously kneed his groin. The tall man was able to wiggle his way out before shoving Yvonne to the wall. The driver flipped around, pushing the controller down to the ground. His neck scraped the side of the desk as he yelled in agony. The two struggled endlessly until a station master from outside raced inside of the commotion. Don't just stand there, the controller snapped. Do something! The station master grabbed Yvonne from both arms and pulled her away from the tall controller. She was fighting back, however, and the young man could barely hold her still. Eventually, Yvonne was dragged out of the office building. The tall controller stood back up and brushed himself off, but he was distracted by the large red scar running down his neck. He scoffed. Women. A week has passed since the incident, and Nia was still grieving her inevitable loss. Luckily, there was no rain or sandstorm or anything like that of the sort. But there still was tension. Nia did not feel safe in the slightest. Yvonne, on the other hand, was still fuming. The tank engine was lounging around in the shunting yard until the sounds of a whistle was heard. Nia's eyes lit up. She knew that whistle all too well. Hello, Nia! The giant engine said as he rolled by the track. How are you? How are your wheels? How's your boiler? How are your pistons? Has the truck been taking you where you want to go? And are your fellow engines treating you well? Nia couldn't stay blue for long, not with a charm like Quaku to cheer her up. I'm doing very well today, Quaku. Thank you. But the Garrett engine could see it in her eyes. The pain she was trying to hide behind that smile. A beautiful smile, no less. Nia, I could tell you have something in your mind. Is everything really okay? Well, she hid it for as long as she could. Nia didn't cry, even though by the looks of it, she almost could have. Remember my controller? He wasn't so happy about me traveling or my, redesign. And so he
demolish my shed.
Kwaku's jaw dropped. It was more disappointment than sorrow.
What hurts most of all, she continued, is how all this time, when I thought him forgetting me was bad, he decides to abandon me on purpose.
Kwaku switched tracks and touched buffers with Nia. If it's unclear what he's doing, Kwaku was attempting to hug Nia. Obviously he can't because he's a train. But it's the thought that counts. And in this case, it's all that matters right now. The presence of the big friendly giant was just so comforting, whether he was hugging or not. He backed up to look at the tank engine. He smiled warmly.
Right now, you are in a troubled place, and it may seem like things aren't getting any better. But trust me, if you have hope, something wonderful will come. I'm praying for you, okay?
Thank you, Kwaku. You have no idea how much this means to me.
The thing that people tend to forget is how the future can hold many surprises. We don't know what we're going to walk into. Most of the time, we're caught off guard, and it scares us. That fear shifts our perspective, making us unprepared for what's to come. Take last week's fiasco, for example. Well, we shouldn't fixate on those experiences, but rather develop from them. Nia could have been mourning all week, or maybe all month, or even all year. But she knows weeping about it isn't going to do anything. And she knows bad things never last. Not for long, anyways. When one obstacle comes, we work our way to find another path. That's the reason why so many people consider Nia to be a clever engine. She sees the world in a whole different perspective, and takes each opportunity she can get. It's almost a miracle she can be this optimistic based on what she's been through. Not long afterwards, the gray tender engine rolled into the shunting yards. He came back from pulling a slow goods trip and had some news to share.
Psst! Hey you!
He called out. Nia looked up, trying to decipher where the voice came from.
Who said that?
Over here. I need to ask you something. Nia reluctantly approached the engine.
Do you know anything about a celebrity coming here?
The engine asked.
A celebrity? What celebrity?
I don't know. I've heard some rumors that a famous engine was arriving in Dar es Salaam. See, I've never been great at remembering icons. The only person I know is Beyonce. Do you know who it is?
Sorry, no. Where's this famous engine from? Maybe I can get a hint from that.
I'm not so sure. But I think, and take this with a grain of salt, but I think he's British. Maybe. Nia, though she was excited, wasn't all that surprised by that news. Almost every famous engine she knows is British. But the question is, who exactly could it be? For the rest of the day, Nia couldn't shake the thought of the famous British fan-loving superstar engine. That's what the news sounded like in her head. She thought of all the well-known characters she could think of. Maybe it was the streamlined Mallard, or perhaps the Flying Scotsman wanting to travel for the second time. Nia was always fascinated by foreign locomotives. So many engines in so many classes and so many countries. Sometimes, occasionally, she wonders how different her life would have been if she were living on one of those railways. Somewhere in an alternate universe, a different Nia, or a happier Nia, was living the time of her life. In an alternate universe, there was a kind of controller who accepts engines for who they are. In an alternate universe, she's doing odd jobs that are so quirky that it would have been written in an award-winning book series. In an alternate universe, Nia is Nia. And while she knows that there are other engines who have it worse with the fate of scrapping, there are many other engines who are living it easy. And sometimes she'd envy those engines. Nia cursed the thought of ever thinking such a thing. At the very least, she should be at least grateful she's still running at all. But that painful feeling of knowing there's some other engine out there living a better life diminishes her.
So, what you think of that famous engine, eh?
Yvonne said chipperly. It was her best attempt to lighten up the situation. Nia just gave a displeasing side-eye.
It's something, I guess. Oh, please, love. You can't not be happy forever. I can try.
Yvonne sighs.
We're on the thinnest ice right now, Nia whimpered. You attacked our boss. I'm shocked we're still alive. Well, you better believe it. I said I will back you up no matter what, even if that requires a little tackle.
Yvonne's face went from apologetic to stern real quick.
And because he threatened to hurt you. To hurt me. He wants to do something awful to you. Something that will hunt you down for the rest of your life. Turns out he was true to his word.
Yvonne said that last bit to herself, feeling much ashamed.
I've always told you to be tough, but... Oh, I don't know. Did I really go too far?
Nia thought for a moment. This predicament the girls have gotten themselves into was a very complex situation. But Yvonne had a purpose for standing up to the talk controller. Albeit it did get out of hand, but it was out of protection. To have a bond so strong, someone is willing to fight her boss for you, means something. And given how little he cares, maybe Yvonne was right to knock a little sense into him. A few hours later, rain finally came. It was only a little drizzle, nothing major. Nia used to love it when it rained. The fresh water falling from the sky, streaming down her boiler, always puts her in a good mood. But today, she felt unprotected. Losing her shed meant that she was exposed to the open elements. And when metal is openly exposed, it turns to rust. Nia shudders at the thought.
Maybe I'll find some sort of cover for now, she says.
She noticed a small group of trees just by the end of the yard. It was just wide enough for her to fit through.
Perfect!
She crawled inside the little opening. It was shady, and some droppings still fell through, but it was a cozy structure. Honestly, it was a very pretty sight. That pitter-patter sound of the rain hitting the leaves, it felt so relaxing. It was almost impossible not to fall asleep right there and then. And so that's what she did. Some time had passed, and Nia was still sound asleep, peacefully snoring underneath her roof of plantations. The rain had stopped a while ago, and the air was all moist. Yawning, Nia awoke to the sound of chatting nearby.
Where are we now? Now how am I supposed to get to the meetup on time?
We told you to ask for directions earlier.
There was a small tank engine right by the edge of the yard. The engine made a crunched-up face in retaliation. Nia observed the engine closely. He looked very familiar. He was a blue tank engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was pulling 2 small orange coaches. I think by this point, you and I already know exactly who this is. The tank engine looked lost and impatient. Usually, Nia will often feel great sympathy for lost engines, but the funny faces he made were just so amusing. So much so that Nia gave a slight giggle, quite loudly. The engine looked up and quickly shot a confused stare at her. The jig was up, and Nia had to own it now.
Your face!
She giggled.
It's okay. I too often get lost when I'm trying to get around places.
I'm not lost, the engine objected. Just simply misguided, that's all.
Misguided indeed, said the leading coach. Thomas, you're in a whole different country. A whole different continent for that matter.
Nia shot back.
Thomas? As in the Thomas that tank engine?
The blue tank engine flickered a winning smile. The one and only. Unless there's some other blue tank engine named Thomas, which, let's be real, I bet there's those named after me.
Oh, wow! So that will make you two Annie and Clarabelle, right? Whoa! I'm such a huge fan of yours and your railway. My driver has been reading me books about you, and so do and... Wait a minute. What are you doing all the way here in Kenya? Well, for everything that you just said. I'm on a world tour.
Not if you're also the meetup, you're not.
A booming voice sounded from one of Andy's windows. Nia needed no introduction to know who that voice belonged to. Out from the coach came a stout gentleman, the fat controller himself.
Sir Topham Hatt!
The man tipped his top hat to the orange engine as she awed in amazement. He walked sternly to Thomas. Nia respectfully looked away. She knew there was going to be a nice lecture coming up. It was the same energy Yvonne would have given towards Nia herself.
Now listen here, Thomas, he boomed. This isn't like your brunch line or anywhere else on Sodor. Right now, we are completely unfamiliar with our surroundings. We have to be smart about our actions, meaning don't put too much pride in that funnel of yours.
Sir Topham tapped his forehead.
Let's save some space for common sense. Now, we have to keep going that exact route that man told us to travel.
I know that, sir, Thomas replied. But everyone keeps giving us little directions. I don't even think half those people we asked knew the way to Dar es Salaam, Nia filled in. Yeah, that. That's where we're supposed to go, but the ship sent us here instead. I can take you. The sergeant folks all looked shocked. Really? You're willing to come with us? Why not? I know the way there. You can get to your meetup and, well, I get to talk to an icon. Thomas liked the sound of that, especially the icon part. But the fat controller was a bit more doubtful than Thomas was. He analyzed the orange engine.
I want to make this very clear. We are on a very tight schedule at the moment, and it's important that we head to Dar es Salaam as soon as possible. I don't want to bother your inconvenience because of us, especially since you have work to do here. Are you sure about this?
Positive. Yvonne took a turn to this conversation. She walked towards Sir Topham. His presence really was intimidating, as people say it is. Yvonne shook the man's hand and tried to level him down. I apologize for my engine. She's very excited. We're really big fans.
But is it true that you know the way to Tanzania?
He asked. Yes, sir. We've taken trips there ourselves. In fact... Yvonne looked around the yard, still holding that last syllable. We're taking a goods train there right now. We are? Yes, Nia, we are. And she gave her a little wink. Sir Topham Hatt didn't feel as satisfied with this, still feeling a bit of suspicion.
Just in case, may I get a word with your manager, or the person in charge?
Sir, Thomas butted in. With all due respect, sir, we're going to be late enough as it is. We might as well just give him a chance. And besides, I have a good feeling we can trust them. He gave a supportive smile back to Nia. She beamed in return. The fat controller just sighed in defeat. They've already gone this far, and Nia was the best they can work with at such short notice.
Very well then, he finished. You may escort us to Dar es Salaam, but I'm going to keep a close eye on you two. No funny business.
Nia gave an affirmative look. I promise I won't let you down, sir.